JacksonYeomans.
Yes.
Can you hear me, Jackson?
Don't back forward groups.
Jackson?
Like,
Yeah,
like, who did
just graduated.
Skating. Playing Fortnite. W.
How's it going, Jeremy?
Why the lighting effects wouldn't like being
The who?
lighting effects.
Sorry, what about the lighting effects?
I've heard about lighting effects when it's graduating.
Oh, it's because it's probably pretty heavy. Hi, Jackson. Can you hear me?
Hey, what's up? Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry, just getting my
Oh,
stuff fixed up. Close my door.
how are you doing?
How you been? I'm doing all
Uh,
right. Just between productions, got an overnight tonight. You know,
you have what?
an overnight tonight.
Oh,
We're shooting overnight.
what kind of film is it?
It's a tone poem kind of deal. It's like some recently graduated actress is trying to make her directorial debut. It looks really good. That's all I can say. I don't really. I've only been on it for like a day, and they didn't have a gaffer for the first 3 days, and I got brought on to light the last. They were doing some interiors. They needed someone to light it.
Cool. You
Yep.
want to say hi to the class?
Yeah, for
Say
sure.
hi to Jackson.
Hello.
So this
How
is
are you
a
guys?
mixed class of filmmaking and advanced filmmaking. And
Okay.
everyone, this is Jackson Yeomans. He graduated 4 or 5 years ago.
2018.
Has it been 5 years?
It's 5 years. Yeah. I graduated like they're doing their last week of classes at NYU right now. So I've almost a full year out now.
Wow. And he just graduated from NYU a year ago, and you're now working as a gaffer. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, I'm a freelance lighting technician, gaffer, occasionally key grip, mostly smaller scale shoots to mid scale. I own equipment that I rent out to productions, and that's mostly how I make ends meet.
Cool. So we're gonna go into questions from our students, and you guys, each of you have been assigned a question, and we're just gonna go through the list. And then you can just introduce yourself and your class, and then you can ask your question. So we're gonna start with Blake, and you can introduce yourself, Blake. Here you go.
Hi, I'm Blake.
Hey, how are you?
How did you first become interested in filmmaking?
Uh, so I used to think I knew the answer to that. I genuinely don't really. It's just kind of like something that's always been in the background. I used to watch VHS tapes on like an old TV as a kid. And then there's like a drawing that I found I made when I was in like kindergarten or something, talking about wanting to make movies. But the first time I remember consciously wanting to like do this shit is probably I'd done like some little videography projects and stuff and like done some editing in from like home movies. But and I was like interested in it and I was like, relatively good at editing. So I went to New York Film Academy in Los Angeles. They do a summer program there. And that was where I caught the thing that actually has like kept me in filmmaking, which is the set bug. If you're on set, it's like crack. You can't fucking give it up. And I've been chasing that ever since. It informs most of what I do.
All right, nice.
Casey, we're just
Hi.
going alphabetical order.
Hi, my name is Casey. And my question is,
How you doing?
doing good, thanks. What did you learn about filmmaking and or like the arts in high school?
Um, it's it's kind of tough to say because the thing that I really like did in high school, like it within high school, as opposed to like I did most of my like actual technical learning at a lot of at New York Film Academy and a few other summer programs that I did, as well as just like doing random shit. And like I got very into I got down a few YouTube rabbit holes. There's a few people who like know their stuff who aren't just giving out like the standard like YouTube videographer stuff, and I kind of watched a lot of those. But ultimately, I learned most of what I was learning at that time just by like experimenting and doing. The reality is in high school that people aren't looking for someone who's like super technically accomplished. It's cool if you can like build that experience and like get to that point when you're that young. But right now, I would start if you're looking to go into filmmaking generally, focus on just shooting things, building your sense of storytelling, and trying to like watch and analyze things critically. And that doing that work while I was in high school, just getting that out of the way and like building those skills was easily like the most effective thing that I was doing at the time. And then I also took an earlier version. It seems like things have really changed at Athenian since I was there only a few years ago. But the I took a course called Advanced Drama where we were essentially given carte blanche to do whatever we wanted with like an hour of class time. And so like I shot like a movie during that time, and I kind of like just talked a lot about movies with one of my classmates, Julian. And it was through those conversations and through simultaneously going through the process of production that I really built like the skills that I think are the foundation for like why I am the filmmaker I am ultimately.
Cool.
But yeah, sorry, this was a really long answer.
Hi. So how and why did you decide to go to NYU and focus on filmmaking?
Um, it was kind of like a I didn't really know what to. So being doing filmmaking seriously started out as like a joke thing to me. Like it was like a something to tell my like parents and tell like people that my parents would introduce me to at parties. Like, oh, what do you want to do? And I was like, oh yeah, I want to do filmmaking because people hear that they're like, oh, okay, this guy's not going anywhere. Uh, but then I started thinking about it, and especially after having like a more professional experience at New York Film Academy where it was like a more formal like set environment and being around like a big set and like seeing those things operating just like for context, New York Film Academy films in the Universal Studios lot. And so you are like filming in one part of the lot, and then there's simultaneously like a real full-scale Hollywood production that's like maybe like 300, 400 feet away. So you can like see little glimpses of that. And that was like intoxicating to me because I was just discovering like how much I could do with like a little bit of gear and a nice camera, and like seeing what the big guys were doing with like hundreds of thousands of dollars and like hundreds of people. It's just like you get a sense of like, oh, this is like where this goes. There's an industry behind this. This is like a thing people have committed their lives to doing. And like that was the first time I ever saw that as a real possibility. And I think especially if you're interested in like the crew side of film, the like more technical side, the where like you learn to be a technician and like uh work from set to set on that, as opposed to like the more creative development side, which I can't really speak to because I don't really operate in that world. There's a lot of work to be had, and if you're good at your job, there's a lot of people really wanting to work with you, in my experience.
Thank you.
Of course.
Hi. My question is, what was the process of getting into NYU like?
Oh, forget that this is your guys' priorities. I'm so in like graduation mode. But anyway, so getting into NYU is it honestly I've heard that they've changed the kind of like portfolio requirements, but what they were looking for me was like a strong grounding in story is how it was explained to me. I visited NYU twice. I toured when I was a like junior and when I was a sophomore, I believe. And both times I had like a really positive experience there. I like and I made some I talked to some people there. indicated that I was interested, and they like, kind of gave me the rundown on the school, what their program prioritizes, which while I was there, it was mostly a prioritization on like trying to find storytellers, people who had natural, like, especially editing and compositional instincts. And a lot of those people, because I feel like, because what NYU is looking for is like someone who, even if they're not going to be the next big director, has really good instincts and can work with big directors to like, you know, create something really good. Because if everyone's operating at that level, it's like the same. But the actual application process, I wrote my essay, my like college admission essay, my general essay about film. Like specifically, I wrote it about how bad movies are like instructive in terms of like learning how to like by understanding why something isn't working and like why you're not like being grabbed by something or why something feels bad, you can like understand how the actual process of making something good is more than like just watching and reacting to something good. And then so I wrote that essay. I wrote a like a personal state artistic statement for NYU being like, hey, I want to make movies. And then I just kind of had I shot a film for NYU that I have heard has screened there several times. I'm sorry, for at Athenian, called Smile. I had initially shot previous films, specifically Hollow, and that was at Athenian. I shot other films at New York Film Academy, but I was kind of like they neither of them really fit the requirements for like the film that needed to be for my portfolio, and those requirements didn't mesh with a lot of other film schools. Like NYU had a very different kind of application. USC had this weird like self video essay thing, and like there was it basically when I looked at the landscape, I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to make like 15 different films to apply to these schools I want to apply to. So instead, I dropped everything and I just applied to NYU because I have some history in New York. I have like personal connections there. I have like family there, and I applied to like one safety school. This is not a strategy that you should follow. To be clear, this is a terrible idea. I was lazy. I made a horrible mistake, and it somehow worked out for me, but I got into NYU early decision. That's actually really key. NYU really prioritizes early decision, at least in the time that I was there. It gives you like NYU's like percentage is like really low. It's even lower now than it was when I applied there. But the if you apply early decision, that percentage that like of acceptance like doubles. And for like early decision one, it's like even more than a doubling in terms of just your ability to get accepted in that time. Especially if you have a strong film that's like something that they're like, oh, this is someone who like knows what they're doing, they'll prioritize you and you'll be able to get in. Especially if you're like someone who is not super like flashy in terms of your filmmaking style and not someone who's like going to I'm very restrained in terms of my like visual aesthetics and my like kind of approach to filmmaking generally. I'm not someone who's doing like a bunch of flashy stuff. I don't have a lot of movement. It's mostly just like lockdown stuff with like, good composition that just plays out over time. And some people vibe with that, some people don't. But because I applied early, the fact that it was good composition, kind of like playing out like, at a pace was enough, I believe. So like, and I can't speak to the reality of this. I don't have any insight into the actual decisions that were made that allowed me to get in. But comparing my films to other people who I know who made films, that's actually something I really recommend is watching a lot of like portfolio films because a lot of them suck and a lot of them that got suck got in, and like understanding what can suck in a portfolio film and what like can't suck for it to be successful, really important because especially like there's a big kind of like temptation in a portfolio film to like swing for the fences and like do something super ambitious that's gonna like impress everyone and like then I'll be like the coming in as like a big hot shot. No, what you need to do is prove that you have the bare competencies to like make a movie and simultaneously tell an interesting story because telling the interesting story is the thing that they're looking for. And then the other stuff is just like technical competence. They can teach you technical competence, they can't teach you how to tell like storytelling. So, and that's something I heard over and over and over again at NYU is like we are looking for like the base, like, and to be clear, this is not like a if you want to work in film, this approach going through film school, going through like the system, it's not the only way in. There's a lot of other ways. I know a lot of people who started even younger than I did. And like I started gripping when I was like 18. Or yeah, 18. And but like I know people who like have been doing union electric work since they were 19. And there's like nothing stopping you, especially in terms of experience barrier, because when you're really young, people want to teach you from like going into a profession, especially if you're like going into one of the unions and picking up like permit work and picking up like a ton of experience. Like, especially you guys, since you guys are in California, only a few hours from LA, if you ever like are given the opportunity to like, go down to LA and hang out for a while, obviously you guys can't network at like bars and stuff, but like if you can go to the place, talk to the people, there's going to be a local film scene. There's going to be a local people that you can connect with, fellow collaborators that you can work with. And the big thing that NYU taught me more than anything else, like easily the most valuable thing, is just work all the fucking time. Because if you're working, you're learning. And if you're like not working, all those skills are rusting. And so even if they're small projects, even if they're terrible rates, if you're working constantly, you're going to be constantly getting better and constantly honing your skills. And so like that's why I recommend anyone who wants to learn about filmmaking start in a crew position, like start as a PA, then to like a grip, or like go into like art or something, because then you understand the flow of a set, you understand how especially a larger set will operate, and by being a cog in that machine, you'll understand how that machine as a whole functions. Um, especially with larger sets, the learning how to be part of a huge crew is like the big step that you need to make from like indie filmmaking into like real, not real in that like indie filmmaking is not real, but like into a like budgeted and like professional scenario. Which is like kind of the goal I would hope of like any person trying to get started in this industry is like we want to make a living, we want to be able to pay our rent, we want to be able to buy food, as hard as that's getting with this inflation nowadays. And I'm sorry, I'm really
Jackson, I just want to, because we have about 10 minutes left.
go ahead
So
and move me on to
can
the
we
next
can we
question.
hit a few more bases? But
Yeah, of
thank you.
course, let's go.
That's super
Thank you.
helpful. Who's next? Okay. And if we, I mean, I think you've hit some of the questions that where you had in the future. So if it's he already hit your questions, you can always just skip to the next person.
What was your experience like at NYU and how is it impacting your current job?
I had a pretty good experience at NYU. Obviously I lost a full year to COVID, and that really screwed a lot of things up. I wasn't able to take a lot of the classes I wanted to take, but simultaneously I wanted to get out into the industry. And so I didn't like, stick around for an extra year. I didn't want to pay another like 120K. But the ultimately, I think the thing that I got out of NYU was a work ethic and the people that I met there, much more than any specific thing that I learned at NYU. There's like it's a good education, it's a good environment. It's a little bit like soulless. There's a little bit of a the lack of campus kind of like really contributes to a lot of people feeling isolated if you don't seek out community. Film's unique in that there's a lot of people around that are in film and you can find that community pretty easily. But if you're going to NYU for like a non like artistic thing, there's like a good chance you'll feel isolated and pretty lonely, and just something that you got to lay out on the line. But ultimately, I had a good experience. I met a lot of really good people. And I would overall recommend, maybe not for the price, but how that goes.
Who's next?
Hello, I'm Victoria.
Oh,
And
nice
my
to meet
question
you.
is, nice to meet you too. So my question is like, how did you build up the experience that gets you into your current career?
I worked every weekend on sets at NYU from my freshman year to my senior year. And so by the time that I graduated, I worked on like maybe 17 sets, my no, 12 sets my last semester, 17 sets my last year, including like a web series that was like five-minute episodes shot over like every weekend for like 7 weekends. And that experience of just working constantly, constantly seeking work, constantly like being on set in that environment in immersing myself in it was the thing that ultimately contributed the most to both my ability to network with people and like build connections that get me jobs and to actually being good at my job and like knowing what I'm doing in terms of like, my gaffing career. Because like all that's you need to know everything below you when you're making a film. And I built up the experience in grip department, in lighting department, and now I feel confident that I can be the leader of that department as a technician.
It's very cool. Thank you.
Hello. My question is, what are some of your, hello, major responsibility in your current job?
So right now I am a gaffer or a head lighting technician, or there's some other words for it. But basically, I'm the guy who tells all the people where to put the lights and then physically puts the lights there. I work in collaboration with the cinematographer and the director to kind of build the general visual look of a film and to decide like what actual things can we afford, how are we going to physically place them where we need to place them, how are we shaping light, how are we like and I direct the grip and electric department to achieve that. I usually have like a key grip who is the head of the grip department but works under me. Even though we're supposed to be co-equal, it's a whole thing. Set hierarchy is hard to define and like nebulous at the best of times, but especially on low budget shoots, everything gets kind of mixed together. But essentially, I work with the key grip to do what the DP wants, and then the DP tries to do what the director wants. Makes sense, I guess.
Hello. My question
Hey.
is, what is a typical day for you like?
Uh, there are no typical days. I work freelance, so every job is different. Sometimes I'm doing absolutely nothing all day. I just get to like sleep in bed. Today I've started waking up really, really early because like, I'll have occasional 4 a.m. calls. Like yesterday I had to wake up at 4:30 to get to like a 6 a.m. call in the city. And then but I'll just, I'll get up, get my bacon, egg, and cheese on my way to work. Or like I'll have something like tonight where I have an overnight that's like 11 to 4 a.m. And so I need to like, make myself sleep when I'm supposed to be awake so I won't like pass out on set later. But like I will have either like days of like 12-hour days or days of no activity. And that's kind of like if that stop start life is like the way that I've been living for like the last year or so. Sometimes I'll have like days where I'm like doing prep work. I also pick up color work. Coloring is a really good gig to get into, like something I want to flag for you guys as like potential revenue stream as like a young and budding filmmaker. Relatively easy to learn. You can get paid as much as like $1,000 for like small projects. And like if you're able to build your competency to like being like at a professional level at a very young age, you can make a lot of money doing that. But the but yeah, so like I do that on the side. I also rent gear and yeah. It's like I have a billion things happening and I'm like just hopping between things managing them, and none of them are like necessarily connected or like know about each other because I have like 5 or 6 gigs that I'm like fielding at a time. But when I'm on set, I'm just focused on the set, and then wake up, work 12 hours, lunch at 6 hours in, go home, crash, burn out. You know how it goes.
Thank you. We got about 5 more minutes, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
What do you love the most about your job?
Working with people that I care about. I get to hire my own crew. I mostly work with a non-binary person and like a rotating cast of a few other people. And I work with the same DPs over and over again, who I've formed like really close relationships with. And like I have it's getting to like see those people on set, have like ongoing relationships and friendships with them, and like, building that like work camaraderie that has like I found myself burning out the last like few months. And that's the thing that's kept me going through, the thing that like keeps me coming back. In addition to just like loving the act of lighting. I love building an image because like this is very much me being pretentious about my job, but I think lighting is like the core like storytelling structure above like acting, above like even framing or composition, just because knowing how to light a space creates the mood that will be conveyed immediately and directly to the viewer. And you can so much fucking storytelling with lighting. So doing that, kind of like doing all that legwork kind of behind the scenes, behind like the director's back, and like having the director show up on set and be like, oh, this was in my head. What the hell? And like that moment is also just super rewarding to chase.
Thank you.
Of course.
All right. Hello. My question is, what is the most challenging part of your career?
Finding jobs and like staying positive about like, things day to day when I'm not actively working. Like there was a period of 2 months. I don't know if you guys have like any of this news has trickled out to you guys, but in the industry, there was a total like kind of like work ground to a halt for 2 months during this winter, where January is usually dead, but February and March were also dead in terms of like decent paying gigs. And so a lot of people were getting like really freaked out about that. And now we have the writer's strike that's currently going on that is affecting like more, people who are unionized and working on those large union scale productions who don't want to cross a picket line. How much have you guys been hearing about that, by the way? Because that's something that's really important to be paying attention to right now.
I haven't heard much about it. So.
We only have 5 minutes, but essentially writers are on strike because they're not being paid for any royalties from streaming, and because of that, and also they're attempting to replace writers with AI. Won't work, but like whatever. So the writers have gone on strike for better better revenue deal with the streaming services, and it's really fucking good that they're doing it because they need that money. Anyway, what was I talking about before that?
The most challenging part.
Most challenging part of my job. The physical taxing effect that it has on my body is also really challenging. I'm lifting like 70 to 80 pound equipment really regularly and having to carry it up like long flights of steps and around a lot. And so like, as I've gotten older, my physical body has worn out. And I'm 23 now and I feel like I'm like 25, 28 in terms of like, I'm feeling like tweaks in my back. Whenever I move my like back around, it clicks. It's just be very careful about the physical toll you're taking with filmmaking because when you're very young, it feels very easy and it's hard to slow down once you're already there. So like spending time stretching, spending time like doing that stuff is really valuable, especially if you're working in a crew role. But yeah, the challenging part is physical taxation and like making sure that I'm not going to be broke next month and being able to pay my rent.
Thank you.
Jackson, we got 2 minutes.
Hi. I was just wondering where you see yourself in the future with your career.
I am working on moving into gaffing features. So, going into like full 90-minute feature films, lighting them with a DP throughout the run of the show and renting my gear to that show. I really want to work with that in that kind of like, very storytelling oriented environment. TV is much more of like a kind of factory line where you're just trying to like, get as many fucking episodes out as you can. Where in feature filmmaking, you can slow down a little bit more and you have actual budgets to do things with. So that's my eventual goals. I want to move into gaffing features, and then eventually I want to shoot features way down the line. But I right now I'm very focused on gaffing, becoming the best I can at lighting, and then I want to make it a transition later on in my career into shooting and DPing and like fully determining the visual look of films.
Cool. Yeah.
Jackson, thank you so much. Please give it up for Jackson.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I hope
And
this was even like a little bit useful.
totally. No, and we've been having a bunch of folks coming in, and it's great to have different perspectives. So the gaffing we've not talked about at all. So that was super interesting and useful. And then we should talk later. I'm shooting a film in the 2nd and 3rd of September, but I'll tell you more about it at a later time.
Sounds
Okay.
good. All right. You
See
have
you,
a great day.
Jackson. Okay. Talk to you later. Bye.
Have a great day, folks.